Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into today's workshop. My name is Nicole Hagen, and as a certified nutritionist, I am here today to talk to you about fat loss. Did anybody else just cringe? Fat loss is one of those topics where there's an abundance of information swirling around on social media and the web. And today I want to break apart the untruths and the diet culture and help you find a plan that feels authentic to you, your body, and your lifestyle. But first, I'd love to know, why are you here? Do you feel conflicted, confused, or just plain old messed up about food or eating, not eating, exercise, or body stuff? I know I've been there. Do you feel like maybe things could just be better somehow? Or perhaps you feel perfectly fine and you're just curious. Do you know someone else who's struggling and messed up and you want to help them? There are absolutely no wrong answers. But before we plan our steps, we have to know the destination. So before I help you find a plan that feels authentic to you and your body, we have to establish the goal. So what is your goal? Where do you want to be? How do you want to look and feel and perform? There are no wrong answers here, and it's completely individual to you and your body. Maybe you're interested in losing weight or losing fat. And no, those things are not exactly the same. Do you want to gain weight or put on muscle? Learn to maintain your weight or maybe improve your health? I'm going to go ahead and take a gander and guess that because you've tuned into today's workshop, your goal is to lose fat. So let's talk about how to do that. Let me just say that we're all a little messed up because we live in a westernized, educated, industrialized, relatively rich and democratic part of the globe. We're confused and we're conflicted. There's so much information out there. And how do we know what to believe or what's right for us? We've never before been so painfully aware of how our bodies look and how they work. We've never had so much good tasting, convenient food at the tips of our fingers. We've never had such unrealistically high expectations for ourselves or for our bodies. We've never been more out of sync with our biology. And coincidentally, we've never felt more alone. So add these things all together, and it's the perfect recipe for emotional eating. So what are we supposed to do if this is the culture we live in? How do I reach my fat loss goal without going completely crazy? I'm glad you asked. And I'm going to talk to you about the perfect cocktail. Not the one you're going to drink at happy hour tonight, but the perfect cocktail for optimum health and aesthetics. Now, there's a couple different ingredients, and the first I'm pretty partial to. I think nutrition is one of the most crucial parts of this cocktail. And that's because nutrition is exponentially more powerful than exercise when it comes to changing your body composition. I want you to think about a really good week. How many times are you exercising? 3, 4, maybe 5? And on a really good day, how many eating occasions do you have? 3, 4, 5? So multiplied across a week, you have 35 eating occasions where you can push yourself closer towards your goal or pull yourself further away. And you only have 5 exercise opportunities. And that's a good week. So not to say exercise isn't important. It absolutely is. And it's definitely a part of our fat loss cocktail. But we don't want to undervalue the importance of nutrition. Now, we have nutrition. We talked about exercise. But then we have this ingredient called rest. And it's really important that recovery is a part of our cocktail because, as many of you know, when we're going all the time and we're never giving our bodies time to rest and recover, we burn out. Overstress is not a good place to be if fat loss is the goal. But I've not even told you about the most important ingredient in this cocktail. It's super unsexy and not very popular, but guys, we cannot reach and sustain our fat loss goals without consistency. Our bodies respond to what we do most of the time. If I do something for a short period of time, guess what? I can expect short-term results. So if I'm looking for something that sticks with me and produces lifelong progress, I must have consistency. And this is where our culture is way off base. We really encourage all or nothing thinking. We start a diet on Monday, we're all in, we're only eating good foods, never eating those really tasty, less healthy foods. And then come Wednesday, you've had a really stressful day at the office, you come home and you sneak a cookie. And then, I failed. I might as well just quit, eat whatever I want, and start again on the day. Does that sound familiar? I know it does for me. But if our focus is consistency instead of perfection, being 1% better each day as opposed to all or nothing, we are guaranteed to make more sustainable, more significant progress. So if we know what to do to get there, what's standing in our way? What's the barrier? The biggest barriers to fat loss are stress and trauma. Now you're probably thinking, what? Trauma? And we often think of big T trauma, like violence or rape. And that's okay, it could certainly be a part of your equation. But trauma can also be little t trauma, little micro traumas that happen every day. Relationship disagreements, job transitions, physical and emotional abuse, finances, taking care of aging parents or young children, managing grief or loss, mental and physical illness, and emotional factors like loneliness or depression. These things can present huge barriers to our really good intentions. So if we know the barriers, how do we overcome them? And there's a couple different steps. It's a multi-tiered process. But first, we have to learn how to pause and self-regulate. So if I just came home from a terrible day at the office and I walk into my door and the first thing someone says is, "Mom, Dad, what's for dinner?" I just want to dive into a vat of peanut butter and forget about everything else, right? But I have to be able to pause and separate my emotional self and my emotional response from my behaviors, or else I can't ever be intentional about my food choices. Stress is part of our life. I wish I could take that away for you, but I can't. So we have to learn how to better manage those stressors. Second, we need to figure out and discover what nutrition strategies work best for your body and your lifestyle. We are all unique and individual. What works for one of us doesn't work for all of us. So taking some time to investigate and uncover, what does my body respond to? And once we know that, setting our environment up for success. I love the first law of nutrition. If you have access to good food, you will eat good food. If you have access to bad or less nutritious food, you will eat less nutritious food. Guys, it's not rocket science. I have to make the easy choice the healthy choice, or I'm not going to make it. Then I need to accept that failure is a part of the process. I'm going to fall. I'm going to eat a cookie every now and then. And instead of completely throwing myself off course and trying to find the next magic bullet, I just need to pick myself back up again and try again. And lastly, surround yourself with a really strong support system. You don't have to do this alone. Use accountability. Get a coach. So we've talked a little bit about the psychology behind fat loss, but let's dive into the food specifics. I like to call this section Nutrition 101. I want you to finish this sentence for me. Food is blank. Oftentimes, the first thing that people say is food is fuel, because that's what the diet culture tells us. And you're not wrong. Food does provide us with energy by way of calories and macronutrients. The big nutrients our bodies need. I have them listed here: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. There will never be more and there will never be less. But guys, food is so much more than fuel. Food is information, Every molecule of food that I eat delivers a message to other parts of my body. Release this hormone, don't release that one. So every food choice, every food opportunity directs, shapes, remakes my health, performance, and body composition. And I get to choose whether that's in a positive or a negative way. It's pretty cool stuff. But let's take a second to talk about food composition. What is it that you're actually eating? And what information is that sending my body? The first macronutrient we'll talk about is protein. And protein is really important for our bodies because it's responsible for things like maintaining our structure and building muscle, hormones, and also keeping us really full after we eat a meal. I want you to think of protein like the building blocks for our body structure. It's essential to health, wellness, and fat loss. Good sources include animal sources of protein like chicken, turkey, steak, of course seafood, eggs, egg whites, and then we have a whole list of plant-based sources of protein like beans and legumes. Then we have everybody's favorite macronutrient, the carbohydrate. Our digestive systems break down the carbs that we eat and then release them into our bloodstream as glucose. Now, carbs often get a bad rap because glucose is essentially sugar. But guess what, guys? Glucose is also the fuel that our brains and our central nervous systems use. So carbs aren't the enemy, and I want you to remember that. Good sources include vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and things like rice, potatoes, quinoa, and of course bread products. And then we have the macronutrient fat. And fat plays a variety of roles, like helping to provide us with energy, balancing and manufacturing certain hormones, forming cell membranes, and helping to transport fat-soluble vitamins. And it makes our food taste really delicious. Good sources include nuts and nut butters, seeds, coconut, avocado, olives and olive oils, and egg yolks. So let's talk quickly about the pyramid of nutrition priorities when it comes to fat loss. There's a lot of information out there, but what does it really boil down to if I'm trying to lose fat? And you'll see here the biggest piece of the puzzle in the blue section at the bottom is calories. And this just means that how much I eat or don't eat plays the biggest role in how much I weigh or don't weigh. So we don't need to get caught up in the tiny, minute details of food timing and how often I eat each day. That really doesn't matter when it comes to fat loss. If I'm eating too much, I will never lose fat. Because in order to lose fat, I must be in what we call a caloric deficit, where the calories or the food that I eat ends up being less than the calories that I burn or expend. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. Once we have that where it needs to be, then we can look at things like the macronutrients we just talked about. How much of what I eat is protein compared to carbohydrates and fat? Then we look at micronutrition. Am I deficient in any important vitamins and minerals? Because that might be keeping my body from functioning optimally. And then at the top of our pyramid, we get into things that don't matter quite as much, but we like to get really caught up in with diet culture. Things like meal timing, frequency, and supplements. Honestly, guys, you don't even need to pay attention to this. 95% of the time, it's just a waste of energy. So keep your focus towards the bottom half of this pyramid and you will be successful. So Nicole, it's great. This is helpful information, but how do I know if it's working for me? How do I know if the plan I'm on is the right plan? And that's a fantastic question. I usually encourage my clients to check in with their bodies. Your body is your best feedback mechanism and no one knows it better than you do. So ask yourself these following questions. How's my energy and my metabolism? Do I feel like I have enough energy to do my daily tasks and functions? What about bone and muscle health? Are you constantly struggling with injuries and stress fractures, or do you feel like you're pretty strong and durable? How about brain and body function? Do you feel like cognitively you're clear of mind and able to focus on the daily tasks at hand? Vitamin and mineral absorption. This goes back to that micronutrition. Are you deficient in any important nutrient? A lot of plant-based eaters sometimes find that their iron is low or vitamin D is not where it needs to be, and that can play a big part in how I feel on a day-to-day basis. What about inflammation and immunity? Am I constantly getting sick, or do I feel pretty healthy and pain-free? And finally, strength, endurance, and overall performance. For the athletes among us, how do my workouts feel? How am I recovering? If I'm checking in and really listening for how my body feels, I'll be able to figure out and ascertain whether the plan that I'm following or the way that I'm eating, fueling, and training is really right for me. All right, guys, so before we go any further, I want to take a minute to debunk some popular nutrition myths. Now, this section is not going to gain me any popularity votes, and I'm okay with that because I want to be the person that tells you the truth and gives it to you like it is. So let's talk about some of the biggest BS in diet culture. Myth number 1, the belief that there's something wrong with my body because I just can't lose weight. There is most likely nothing physically wrong with your body. If you don't have the body you want, you most likely just haven't found a strategy that serves you yet. And that's okay. Even if you're dealing with factors like hypothyroidism, menopause, or PCOS, you can still lose weight. You are not an exception to science, but it just might take a little longer or require a little bit more focus. Myth number 2, you can choose where your body loses fat, weight, and inches. You will never be able to choose where your body drops fat from. I wish this could be the case because so many of us just want to target those specific trouble spots like your belly or your back. And unfortunately, genetics determine where we lose our weight and our inches from. And that might not be where you want to lose it from first, but sorry. Eventually, the fat will be lost. So when you find a plan that works for you, stick with it, and it will come off. Myth number 3, and this is a really hard one to hear, but the belief that fat loss is hard. And guys, if I'm being honest with you, fat loss isn't the hard part. Consistency is the challenge. You can lose fat using many different strategies. Any diet will work if you can stick with it long term. The hard part is finding a strategy that fits with your life. Amidst dropping the kids off, working long hours, taking care of your aging parents, or struggling emotionally. That's the challenging part when it comes to fat loss. Myth number 4, there's a best way to lose fat. There is absolutely no best way outside of the best way for you, your body, and your lifestyle. But guys, I promise you, there is no one universal right way. Diet culture will do a lot to teach you otherwise, but stop listening to what your friends are saying works for them because your body's different. Don't get swallowed up by what social media is preaching or what cultural trends and fads are talking about. Find what works for you, invest in yourself, and if it works, stick with it. I promise you will see results. To show you why all diets work, I want to talk about this slide. So you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, I have some popular diets listed here, like keto, Atkins, and paleo, all of which follow a low or no carb approach. Diets like Weight Watchers that encourage counting calories or counting points. Vegan or vegetarian style diets that eliminate animal sources of nutrients. Or a whole food diet that encourages you to minimize or eliminate packaged and processed products. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. I could have added macro counting and fasting on here as well. But take a look on the right-hand column why these diets work. It all boils down to being in a caloric deficit. What we talked about when we looked at the pyramid of priorities, right? I have to consume less than I expend if I want to lose fat. So whether that's reducing the number of carbohydrates you eat or limiting the number of fat you consume, whether it's just monitoring packaged processed junk foods or taking the number of hours in a day that you're consuming food down, which is what fasting does. It doesn't matter. It's all about what feels best for you and your body. Myth number 5, I have to completely revamp my life to see results and achieve fat loss. No, no, no. Little movements make big movements. Big change, when done too quickly, is trauma. And we already talked about how trauma is a barrier to fat loss. We need to start thinking micro level. Think about the tiniest change you could make right now to push yourself just one small step closer towards your goal. What does that look like? The more you succeed at those small steps, the better you feel. And I don't have to tell you that the better you feel, the more you want to do. And the more you want to do, the more you can do. You don't have to revamp your life. It's all about the small, consistent steps. So you're probably thinking, okay, Nicole, this is all helpful information, but I'm getting hungry. What should I actually eat? What does this look like in my real life? Let's talk about the basics of portion control. Because we live in a culture that frequently suffers from portion distortion, it's helpful to remind ourselves what a single serving of each of those macronutrients actually looks like. Now, for those of you that were paying attention earlier, you're probably thinking, wait a second, she told me there were only 3 macronutrients. Why are there 4 servings on here? And you would be absolutely correct. So technically, vegetables fall under our carbohydrate nutrient. However, because veggies are so full of nutrients and vitamins and so low in calories or energy, we give them their own special food group because eating veggies is always a good idea. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that 1 serving of protein is about the size of your palm, or approximately 20 to 30 grams. So I want you to think about a 4-ounce chicken breast that contains 25 grams of protein, and that would be equal to 1 serving. The next serving is vegetables, and if you make a fist, that's about the size of 1 cup, which would equal 1 serving of veggies. Next, we have our serving of carbohydrates, and this is a hard pill to swallow, but 1 cupped handful, or 20 to 30 grams, is 1 serving of carbohydrates. We often blow this one way out of proportion, especially when we're dining out, but that's part of the reason why fat loss feels so difficult to achieve. Lastly, we have our fat serving, which is the size of your thumb, or about 1 tablespoon. So let's talk about where these portions come into play. So I know I've already told you that one size never fits all, but let's talk about the variables that impact just how much you need to eat in order to reach your goals. And these variables include things like age, weight, height, gender, and of course activity level. And body type does come into play. So here I have listed a couple of somatotypes or body types, and generally we're a combination of a few of these, but you'll see on the left side we have our naturally long and lean individuals, or what we call our ectomorphs. These individuals have a difficult time gaining weight, but can fairly easily maintain a low body fat percentage. Then we have our mesomorphs, individuals who have a more muscular frame and a fairly similar time gaining and losing weight. And finally, our endomorphs are larger framed individuals that really struggle with weight loss. So these body types can certainly impact how much of various nutrients our bodies respond best to. Let's dive into that a little bit more. What I have pictured here is a meal for a female ectomorph, a naturally long and lean individual. And you can see that she's eating a serving of protein, a serving of vegetables, but we've given her 2 servings of carbohydrates and only half a serving of fat. And this is because ectomorph body types, those long and lean individuals, tend to respond really well to high carbohydrate diets and lower fat diets. Now I'm going to take a guess that most of us don't fall into this category, so I'm going to quickly move on to our mesomorph body type. Mesomorphs, again, this is a meal for a female, so if you were male, you would go ahead and double all of the portions here. Genetically, males have higher metabolisms, which I know, ladies, is completely unfair, but hey, what are we going to do? So here our Mesomorph meal plan includes a serving of protein and vegetables, and 1 serving of carbohydrates and 1 serving of fats. So this is what we would call a mixed meal. You get 1 serving of everything, and generally this is going to meet your body needs. Finally, we have our endomorph meal plan. So again, a female meal. We have 1 serving of protein and vegetables, and now we've only pictured half a cupped handful or half a serving of carb-dense foods, but 2 servings of fat-dense foods. Endomorph individuals tend to respond best to moderate to high fat diets and lower carbohydrate diets. Now, this isn't a perfect science, and like I said, there are a lot of other variables that come into play, like activity level and height and weight. But in order to most accurately portray how much you need to eat on a daily basis, I would have to know all of that information. So hopefully this gives you a nice idea of where you might like to start. I also think it can be really helpful to remember that a meal doesn't always have to be something you sit down and eat with a fork or a knife. Sometimes we're really busy and eating on the go is the only option. So don't forget about things like protein shakes. Here I have a really easy recipe listed that you can get all of the nutrients you need with something you can whip up quickly in a blender. Using protein powder, peanut butter as the fat, some berries or oats for the carbohydrate, and even some leafy greens if you're feeling brave, mixed with some water, unsweetened nut milk. You can make it the night before and rush out the door with it in the morning. Not ideal, certainly, but you can make sure you're fulfilling your nutrient needs as opposed to grabbing a granola bar or skipping breakfast altogether. Whew, so this is a lot of information, and let's tie it all together so you can leave this workshop and begin practicing right away. In order to maintain or lose body fat, these are the practices you want to learn. First and foremost, practice the pause, practice breathing. You need to learn how to self-regulate so that emotional reactive behavior doesn't constantly dictate what and how much you eat. You can have the best of intentions, but if we're constantly letting emotion dictate what we're eating or how much or when I'm eating, it's going to be really challenging to reach my fat loss goal. Second, practice eating slowly. Be present with your food and enjoy it. So often in today's society, we're going, and not even thinking about the things that we're eating or how it tastes or feels in our stomach. Number 3, practice noticing. So no matter what you eat or don't eat, how do you feel? What does your belly tell you? Do you respond better to certain foods or eating at various times of the day? There's no right or wrong here. You're just objectively observing what works for you. Number 4, practice believing that you are worthy of proper nourishment. It's often said that if we fed our friends what we feed ourselves, we'd never have any friends. So believe that you are worth really nutritious, delicious food, because that's absolutely true. Number 5, get enough protein. 6, add colors and smells. Make your food fun. 7, eat healthy fats. And number 8, move well and move kindly. I would be remiss if I didn't show you what the research says. I am a big advocate of using evidence-based strategies. So here I've listed for you factors that are associated with lower levels of body fat. The research tells us that these things are what individuals with lower body fat do or consume. And I hope none of them come as a surprise to you, as it's really similar to what we've just discussed. So the bottom line, stop focusing on calories and quick fixes, but instead focus on the big picture. What does your lifestyle look like? And what would a plan look like that fits that lifestyle? Fat loss is and always will be a combination of what you eat and how much you eat consistently. And of course, the mechanisms behind those factors. So if my fridge never has healthy food, I'm probably out of luck. So make sure you set your environment up for success. I know all of this is much easier said than done, and if you feel like you need some additional help and accountability reaching your goals, I'm here for you guys. I love working with clients, whether it's one-on-one in a group setting or as a couple, to help you figure out the best plan and nutritional strategy for you and for the rest of your life. If you're ready to ditch the diet culture, I am launching a fat loss lab. Starting September 10th, it is a complete 8-week masterclass that will take your fat loss from lackluster to launch. It is possible to reach your health, fitness, and fat loss goals without all the deprivation and the drama. I know it doesn't feel like that because of what diet culture preaches incessantly, but guys, it is possible. So if you're ready and you want to change the future of your fat loss forever, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and register for the Fat Loss Lab. Click the link below to get some more information and to complete the registration. And don't wait, there's a limited number of spots. Thank you so much for tuning into today's fat loss workshop. I hope you learned some additional tools and skills that you can walk away with and to take one tiny step closer towards your health, fitness, and fat loss goals. I would love to see you in the Fat Loss Lab, but feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns about your nutrition, health, and fitness journey. I'm here to help. And as always, eat well, live well, and be well.